Hey, hello. Welcome to episode number 100 of the People We Love podcast. More on that in a moment. But I am Adam Choate, and what's up? If you're new here, what I do is interview people from all walks of life, most often comedians and other artists about their lives and careers. It's casual conversation, but I also ask everyone to highlight someone they love, someone who they admire, someone who influenced them, inspired them, supported them. Sometimes it's more than one person, and that's okay. For more, check out peoplewelovepodcast.com. That's peoplewelovepodcast.com, and the Instagram handle is at peoplewelovepodcast. And you can find me on Instagram as well at Adam Choate, if you want to follow me, and it's the same on Twitter at Adam Choate. And please remember to tap subscribe or follow on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. That's always helpful for sure, as are positive reviews on iTunes. Those are definitely greatly appreciated. So, today's guest is Las Vegas, Nevada's own comedian Aaron Mliner. And who better and more appropriate to help me celebrate episode number 100? I mean, I'm pretty sure over the last year and a half or two, especially before these lockdowns and all this stuff, I saw Aaron do comedy probably more than anyone else in town here in LA. Mostly at his show in Burbank, California, called The Bunker turned Nightcap Comedy. And it's been great connecting with Aaron. And in this episode, we cover him growing up in Vegas, his dad working at Caesar's Palace, playing soccer in the heat, being a breakdancing kid, and a hip-hop lover. But soccer turned to theater and improv, and moving to LA turned to stand-up comedy. And that all got started with a comedian friend, Stephen Randolph, asking Aaron, hey, why don't you do stand-up? Let's hear the whole story, though, from Aaron. Here you go. Here's Aaron Mliner. All right, so it's good to see you today, Aaron Mliner. Thank you for joining me on the Zoom here.
Adam, thank you so much for having me. You've been a wonderful addition to the comedy community and coming to support. So,
I appreciate that. That means a lot to me for sure. And I was thinking before, like earlier today or whatever, how I think I've seen you perform more than probably any other comedian when I think about it, because I've seen you even outside of your shows, I think, to some degree. But yeah, I've seen you probably perform.
Yeah, and I remember when you talked about starting this podcast. So congratulations on your 100 episodes.
Wow. Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's amazing.
Thank you. Yes, this is 100. I'm losing track of that. I'm just like, just keep That's pushing awesome, out. Man. No, that means a lot to me. Thank you. Yeah, for sure. And I've enjoyed going to tons and tons of comedy shows, and I miss them. And I've seen, obviously, you're trying to trudge on and
we're doing it. I mean,
that's the most and best you can.
We're definitely going to do it. I have a lot of fun things planned for the next 6 months. So,
yeah, no, that's great. A lot of people are doing the best they can and trying to stay focused and creative during a time where there's been constraints. But I guess when there's constraint, that can breed creative solutions and creativity.
Absolutely. You make a good point. Yeah, I mean, it's it's tough. Comedy is going to be probably one of the last things to come back. I mean, pandemic, it's everything else kind of first and then comedy, which is, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel arts is a real important part, and some would argue it's an essential work because, everyone loves to laugh. Everyone likes to escape. And what better way to do that than a comedy show? So, I'm optimistic. I have my days where I feel like, is this ever going to end? And then I have other days where I'm like, all right, I see the light. So
I think there's some light, but I think it's not. I think what the problem with comedy is that it's, in terms of the pandemic stuff, I think it's best, and this is not me saying this, this is other people I've talked to, and it makes sense, is that I think it's best in close quarters inside with people cramped together. That's like the best space for comedy, and that's the opposite of what society and the world we live in is like pushing.
But
it's kind of that right now.
That with the pandemic and the people who have come out to see the shows, they're so excited that it doesn't matter if it's cold, it doesn't matter if it's raining. It's just, they're so happy to see live. So Yes, that is the perfect recipe for comedy, right? Is a small ceilings, everyone on top of each other for this like almost hypnotic vibe with what's happening in the room. But with the pandemic being still happening and prominent, that it's given comedy a kind of at least we're out seeing comedy, so people are eager and are finding new love for it during the pandemic. So
Yeah, I think we've all kind of had a more of a appreciation for the arts and for entertainment in general, because it's been taken away. Like it's part of our like our culture, society. It's what kind of keeps us going. It's an escape, whether it's sports, whether it's the arts, music, comedy. Like there's more to life than just being alive and staring at four walls. That's not the meaning of life.
No,
I don't think.
No. I mean, I feel very fortunate that I am well and I am healthy, and there's sadness that people are not well and not healthy, but we are comedians and we are entertainers. You're a podcaster, and so your job is and what you were put here to do was to entertain. So we have to do that and we have to trudge on. And I'm hopeful.
Yeah, for sure. That's because that's what the world just needs: podcasters, more and more of them, as many as we can make. In tough times, what do we need? More podcasters.
Yeah. I mean, anything entertaining, anything that can take people's minds off. Podcasting is amazing, and it's come a long way. I mean, I used to podcast way back in like 2012.
OG style.
OG. I mean, look, it took to get an RSS feed took 2 weeks on iTunes. So now it's like immediate. So it's it's come a long way, and it's very good. Anybody can do it, and anybody has a platform, and the cream of the crop rises to the top, as House of Pain says.
Yeah. I'm trying to rise, trying to do some slow rising.
It's all about consistency and putting out good stuff. You've got great guests, and
I appreciate that, and all of them as well. But why don't we get into the current guest for the 100th episode, which I almost forgot that it was. I'm like, when I see all the information in my Google documents, 100. I'll put something about that in the intro. But little did I forget during the recording. But let's get into your life. Vegas, is that where you're from? Born and raised?
Born and raised in Vegas. It's been I moved. I moved. Let's start at the beginning. Yeah, born and raised in Vegas, small town. People think at the time it was very little. It's still not that big, but talking maybe 500, 600,000 people that lived in Vegas, which, a lot of people think it's more. And there's, it's bright lights in all big city, but there's also an element of suburbia, and that's where I was at. And my parents were both in the service industry. My dad was he worked at the Caesar's Palace at the spa, the health spa there. Only one in town. So now every hotel and casino has a health spa, but
sure.
In the 80s, that was the place. It was the who's who. Caesar's Palace was the mecca of Las Vegas. It was where Mike Tyson fought. It was where Liberace performed and Elton John performed. It was where the NASCARs and the whatever happened at the Caesar's Palace.
Wrestling. There were wrestling events.
Yes, Undertaker versus Hulk Hogan for the WrestleMania right there at the and so that was just kind of an interesting part of my life, because I was kind of in the entertainment industry 1 degree separated from my dad at a young age, because he was around all these celebrities, and I rubbed shoulders and I got to hang out with all of them all the time. Whenever he was working, I'd come and help him, and it was just Rodney Dangerfield and
wow.
Oh yeah, it was pretty.
And this is from a young age to teens, like all the way through.
6 to 5, 6 to maybe 10 or 11, I would say. My dad then, so my dad went from Caesar's Palace to Steve Wynn the kind of the historical casino entrepreneur. Steve Wynn was like the guy. He owned like 6 hotels, and he recruited my dad to come work at and open up the Mirage Health Spa, which I believe was the second one. So then my dad left Caesars and went to the Mirage, and it was just like Dennis Rodman. So the same thing. It was just like always around these, icons in their own rights, and I have crazy stories around that. Just like jump roping with Boom Boom Mancini, who was a boxer in the '80s. Where are you from? You're from Jersey, right?
Long Island.
Long Island, and he's a Jersey guy.
Yeah,
Ray Boom Boom Mancini, and at his press junket, he brought me in the ring, and I jumped rope with him. It's just like crazy stuff that you could only hear, in like a movie or something.
Doesn't Vinny Fastline also know that boxer? Because he boxes also. I'm like, where do I know that name from? And
that's actually Vinny and I have that in common. Shout out to Vinny Fastline, great guy. I love that guy. He's a good friend of mine. But yeah,
another comedian.
He's a Pittsburgh guy, but I think somehow his family knows.
Right. I forget the details. I'm like, where do I know that?
Yeah.
What do you remember as like a kid thinking about meeting all these icons? Because you kind of know that they're celebrities. You understand what celebrities are when you're 6, 7, 8 years old.
I don't know. They were kind of like just people. My dad would be like, "Oh, this
to
guy."
you.
To me, like my dad would be like, "Oh, that guy's a world-class gymnast," and I'd be like, "Okay, when are we getting tacos?" Like I didn't really care about too much about it because it just wasn't. You're 6. And you don't really see. It's crazy enough that I lived in Las Vegas. That was something else I didn't know until much later. It's like I grew up in a town of sinners and fucking gambling and mafia and But as a kid, those things don't ring. They don't ring. They're just like, oh, okay. I don't know. I'm going to pick up my dad at work.
You're not interested. You're not. What are you into as a kid? Like cartoons or something like that?
I was a big soccer player. I loved playing soccer. So I was very good at soccer. I played when I was 9. I played with all the like 12 and 13-year-olds. I was like way like all state Nevada soccer player. I mean, I was really good. Could have gone pro if I really wanted to. Somewhere around the age of 15, I got sick of it. I'd played so much, and I started learning about theater and improv, and I was like, oh, this is way more fun. And I don't have to run a lot. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's too hot. I'm guessing it's kind of hot in Las Vegas. Also, I don't know what the summer soccer is if you move it indoors somewhere, but
no, you just do it early
theaters indoors.
Yeah. You do soccer early in the morning in Las Vegas, and a lot of orange slices at halftime and plenty of water and Gatorade. And I like the heat. I've always been a fan of it. So it's like I always make fun of people who, say it's hot here in LA or it's hot and humid there. It's a dry heat, but I grew up playing soccer in it, so it doesn't bother me.
It's toughened you up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I played soccer until I was like 14 or 15, discovered theater and improv. And I remember just being like, wow, this is so fun. It's just, you can be whoever you want and do whatever you want. That's the goal, right? You can just pretend to be this person. So, so I started doing theater, and, I always entertained. I was always one of those like hammy kids. I used to watch MTV Raps and,
wearing the hat.
And, I would break dance. I learned to break dance. And for whatever reason, because breakdancing was on MTV and there was a lot of black people on MTV. Anytime I would go out to the mall or anywhere with my family, and if I saw black people, I would just go breakdance for them because I didn't realize. I didn't realize, like, I was like, oh, they get it. Like, these people, they look like people who like breakdancing. So I would breakdance.
How old were you?
6 or 7.
That's funny.
So my mom would like be embarrassed because I would run off at the mall and, there'd just be like a black couple sitting eating ice cream or something, and I'd go and break dance for them, and they'd be like, yay! And for whatever reason, I just was like, oh, these type of people like breakdancing. It wasn't like a racist thing or a racial thing. It's like, oh, I saw those people that are sitting here on TV and they like breakdancing.
Yeah,
so
and everyone
embarrassed.
but everyone's gonna like it. Who's a 6'7"? Everyone other than your mom, if
Well,
is
she
gonna
liked it.
like
She
the
just
6, 7-year-old.
yes, a 7-year-old breakdancing. Yeah. So I immediately took to the hip hop music, and I've always been a fan of hip hop music, and and then I was in a yeah. I mean, we're skipping around a little bit. So
That's all right.
16 comes, and I get a fake ID. Being in Las Vegas, that was something that was like you kind of have it right in order to be in.
They probably pass them out, I would think.
Yeah, well,
Essentially,
kinda. So this was pre 9/11. So to get a fake ID, what I would do is my buddy Matt, who was 24 at the time, I also hung out with older kids. My buddy Matt was my height, and I had brown hair and green eyes, and he had brown hair and green eyes, and he was my height. So he went to the DMV and said, "I lost my ID." So when he filled out all the paperwork, I stepped in and took the photo. So it was a real ID. You can't do that now.
wow,
So I had a real,
elaborate.
allegedly I had a fake ID.
Yeah,
And
allegedly this all happened.
yeah, allegedly. I mean, it's Vegas, right? Nobody knows.
Yeah,
So I had a fake ID, and I'd go and hang out at the hip hop clubs and watch my friend War and Peace DJ, and I was really into music, and I had a fake ID when I was 16, and then a friend of mine was in a Beastie Boys tribute band. So I started kind of like covering for him, like being his backup when he needed to go do something or have his life. I would step in and perform as Mike D in this Beastie Boys tribute band at a local college bar in Las Vegas. And so then I started doing that.
while you're in high school age, while you're
I was 17. Yeah.
Yeah, damn.
I dropped out of high school at my end of my sophomore year. I dropped out. I just didn't really see the point. I'd learned everything I needed to learn. My dad and my mom were not happy about it. But
yeah, I was going to ask what their reaction was to that. I can't
not
imagine.
happy. Yeah, not happy. Especially because they didn't. My dad dropped out of high school, and my mom completed high school. She didn't go to college, so I didn't want to go to college. I didn't find any use for high school. I was smart, and I knew that what I needed, I was a hustler, and I wasn't going to find it in an education system.
What did you want to do? Where did you imagine your life was going when you were a freshman, sophomore in college? What were you telling your parents?
I want to be an actor. I want to move to Los Angeles. And they were like, "That's fucking crazy. Go to school." And I was like, "No, I'm going to move to Los Angeles. I want to be an actor." And then my mom actually, believe it or not, I mean, she knew I was talented. She was like, "Okay, all right." She says, "I'm not paying for it. You can work your job and you can make a lot of, save up a lot of money, and then you can go." So from 16 to 19, I worked 3 jobs and saved up a couple of $1,000 and moved, bought a car and moved to Los Angeles when I was 20.
Damn. That's exciting.
I get here. I was in summer times growing up in my high school years. I would go to a theater camp called Camp Bravo, and it was a camp in Devenville Pines, San Bernardino, like outside of Los Angeles, Big Bear area. I'd go there, and it's camp. It's like everyone is having a great time. It's theater camp. We're all performing. I'm like a popular kid in the camp because I'm so fun and funny and actory, and so I become really close with a couple of people in the camp that I'm actually still friends with now. But I tell one of them that I'm going to move to Los Angeles, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to go to school at USC. So if you want to come live on campus, you can stay in the student housing with us." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I signed the papers, and I moved in that summer, the last year of camp, and I moved in with him, and we shared a room. 2 other guys shared a room in a 2-bedroom, and right by USC. And I started working. I started waiting tables. It was hard, man. I couldn't get a job when I first moved to Los Angeles. It was very difficult. My savings was dwindling. I'm going, what the hell am I going to do? I can't find a job. I'm going to have to move back to Vegas. And finally get a job working at a steakhouse. and I'm waiting table. I'm sorry, I'm a busboy. Then I start moving to food runner, and I'm just saving money, working, waiting tables. And like life starts to pass. You know, you're 20, you're 22, you're 24, you're 26, still waiting tables. You can't really get ahead here.
Are you pursuing acting at the time and going on auditions and things like that as well?
Yeah, a little bit. Mainly just doing improv. I was doing improv pretty heavy with Second City. I did the conservatory in Las Vegas, but that was before I left. But then I came here as UCB. So I was doing UCB and just kind of like going through the programs are expensive though. You know, it's like they were like $400 for an eight week session. So any money that I saved from not having to pay rent or any of my bills was going towards some sort of like improv class or.
Sure.
You know, I didn't really go audition. Then somewhere around like, I don't know, 24, I realized I didn't want to act anymore. It was like, nah, I don't want to do it. I don't like the desperation of acting. It's like you have to go into a room, you have to sell yourself, and I wasn't into it. It didn't ring true to me. So I started like DJing. I took up DJing. I always liked music. Yeah. Then I started like DJing at the clubs out here. Then I was making good money. So then it was like, okay, what am I saving money for? Like, I'm putting money away. What am I doing with it? And then I'll never forget, I was doing improv. I had a show with, I was doing a show with a couple of guys, and it was cool. It was like an improv / stand-up show called Palapalooza with a very, very talented comedian by the name of Stephen Randolph and another very talented comedian and writer by the name of Bill Posley. And we started this show. And the show was a stand-up comedian would do time, and then the improv teams would improv based off the stand-up's material. Great, super fun. I mean, it was,
yeah, that sounds fun. I would like to see a show like that.
Yeah. We are still friends, and we are, you know, we talk about a reunion all the time. But that show was very, very popular in like the 2012, 2013 era. Very popular. I mean, like we would have sold out shows every weekend for, you know, years. And I remember my buddy Stephen Randolph being like, Aaron, why don't you do stand-up comedy? Because he had just started doing stand-up comedy. He had, I think maybe he was like 3 years in at that point. Steven's hilarious. I love that guy. He's one of my favorite humans. And I remember him telling me that. He's like, why haven't you ever done stand-up? And I was like, immediately in my head, I'm like, that's so scary. Like, I don't know if I could ever do it. And he's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you do improv. Improv's way harder. Like you're trying to make stuff up on the spot and be funny. Like this is a chance for you to sit down and write jokes. And you know, he was kind of right. He was right because he kind of lied to me by telling me it was easier because it isn't. It's a completely different. It's like he'll use the analogy of wrestling and jiu-jitsu, right? They're similar, but they're different, and they're both very difficult. So wrestlers can normally be good at jiu-jitsu and vice versa, but they're different muscles and you have to work them, right? So, but him telling me that it was enough of me being blind and stupid to believe it, to try it. So in 2012, I went to an open mic and did stand up for the first time, and I did well because I was always good at improvising. So it's like being funny was easy, but then the hard part was writing funny jokes. So it's right. Like I can be interesting and I can hold court and, you know, and talk, but writing a very polished, really good joke that you know is just going to wow everybody. That became a love of mine. I was like, this is awesome. This is something that it's the most now you can be. I always explain it as like, it's the most now you can be on stage, like present time, what's happening right now. And the time just goes. There's no time. It feels really weird. And at first, when you're first starting doing stand-up, you run out of time and you're like, oh God, I don't have any more material. I don't know what to say. But then when you start to get into a groove, you blink and it's like 15 minutes goes. You're like, it's been 15 minutes I've been up here. It doesn't feel that way. You blink and it's been an hour and you're like, where did the time go? Because you're in this flow state. And yeah, so I started doing stand-up comedy at in the open mic scenes, and still was doing improv a little bit and doing our shows and just going at it, just grinding, grind. And LA's a hard place to start doing stand up. So I picked a very difficult spot, but I'm glad I started here because it's one of the greatest cities in the world for it.
Who is your comic friend's name that sort of pushed you into stand up, or just Stephen Randolph?
Yeah, he's the guy. He's the one.
Did he see you perform once you started to get going, like as far as like really pursuing it? Did he kind of see you in the early days and be like, "You're doing good," or give you advice or feedback or?
Yeah, Doug Stanhope has a great saying. He says, "Advice is just making somebody be more like you." So every comedian would say, has something to say for someone else, but it's only true to yourself. So yes, Randolph would definitely say, like, oh, you try this, or like, got to talk a little bit more about this, but it's my own journey. He understood that, but he was there like cheering me on, and that's what I needed. And I'll never forget, he was the one that talked me into stand-up comedy, and I'm glad he did. He was a real influence on me, and I love that guy. He's hilarious, and if he thinks I'm funny, that's the push that you need. You need somebody to be like, no, you can really do this. So.
Yeah, just the way you were like describing him, like telling you a couple of minor little stage things and joke notes or whatever, just the way your mannerisms were, it made me think that like he was actually excited for you even more than like it was like he was excited to like give you feedback because he's excited for your like journey as a comedian. Almost sounds like I can tell this by your reenactment, maybe.
Yeah, he was, he still is. He's a very dear friend of mine. I love him very much. And, he was the reason why I started doing stand up. Now, starting to do stand up and continuing to do stand up are two very separate things.
Yeah, I was going to ask about, the what happened next on your kind of journey.
So I'm just grinding, and, you get these little victories. And that's what keeps you going. And so I was just kind of on the scene doing stand up. I've always been in like into live production as far as like producing shows. So I learned very early on that I'm not going to ask to get on shows. I'm going to get good enough so that people ask me to do shows. Okay, well, how do I do that then? Well, you start your own shows, right? No one's going to ask you to start something. You got to start it. So I started doing shows. I linked up with another great friend, Brenton Biddlecombe, who's a wonderful stand-up comedian, very funny. He was a Comedy Store guy, passed at the Comedy Store. We would do these shows called Hammer and Stone. And basically the idea being he drinks, I smoke weed. So we called it Hammer and Stone. And we would link up with local weed companies to either give out weed or alcohol companies to give out alcohol. And
this sounds perfect to me. This sounds like a great plan you got going.
Yeah. So
this was what year? This was when?
2015.
Okay.
2015.
Yeah, it couldn't have been that long ago. If it's like that legal or that open or whatever accepted and even in LA, 15 years ago, it was a little bit different with this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Brenton, he was tied up or he was tied in with the stand-up world at the Comedy Store because he's a paid regular there. So he was able to get some bigger names for us. So he and I would host the shows, and we had, Theo Vaughn, Andrew Santino, Ian Edwards, Brody Stevens. I'm 3 years into comedy. I'm doing comedy with these. Now these comics are giant, right? But this is the class, like 2 classes ahead of me, right? So, well, I wasn't that good. I could host. I've always been a great host, but I was all about producing shows. I knew if I continued to make shows, I would get good. So it sucks at first, and then you get. Then you kind of get better, and then you get better, and then you get better. So Brenton and I do a couple of rounds of these shows. And then it's all then from that. So I link up with this weed company that makes ice cream, this weed ice cream. So they come out, they bring all this free ice cream. We found this really cool place in the Arts District to do shows, and they were great. They were super successful. Um, and I would have like, from my DJ world, I'd have people from the DJ world come out and watch the shows, and I met this chef. Oh, that's my dog. He believes it.
What did you say? Something about a chef? You had a chef at shows that he heard. What made your dog mad?
I don't know. Apparently he doesn't like food. Come here, boy. So I have this chef come into the shows, and he reaches out to me and says, "There's this place in Studio City that wants to do comedy, and I told the guy that you're the guy to do shows." So I meet up with this owner of this restaurant called The Six. I start doing shows in Studio City out of the back little area, and I was doing them every week, every Monday, and some of them sucked because no one showed up. But it gave me comedy currency. I was able to meet a lot of comedians, and then the shows got good. Then I started doing them once a month, and they got real good, and they were real popular. A lot of people at them. Then I was, deciding at some point, all right, well, so I produce comedy shows at other venues. I think it's time for me to open up my own place, because then the money funnels back to me and not into someone else's pocket, right? So I decided to find this space. I got a very good friend named Dave Damiani, who I know from my DJ world. He kept telling me about this place in Burbank that he has an office space and he bleeds money out of it. And I was like, well, let me check it out. So I go and check it out. And I'm like, all right, I think I can do a show here. And then it's like, well, whatever comes of it, I can, I'm completely, it's all me. You know what I mean? Whatever, if it sucks, it's me. If it's great, it's me. So I started doing shows and then turned into a comedy venue. And then it was just like off to the races, man. Every weekend, Friday and Saturday, sold out shows. I mean, you were there right in the early days, Adam. You were there.
When did you start? Like, I don't even really know when you started versus when I started coming, but I think at least, it's been at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Like,
yeah. So October,
I've lost track.
October 2018 is when I started doing shows there.
Yeah, that must be right around when in the ensuing year, I started coming for sure.
Yeah, and then like 18 months of just having great shows, and then pandemic hit. And then it was like, well, what the heck am I going to do now? I don't have money to pay rent. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I just kind of took a couple of months off and regrouped, started creating like TV content and writing. I have a lot of great show ideas. I want to be a creator, TV creator and content creator, and started doing that, and then decided to rebrand and change the name, and just kind of, because of the pandemic, just put it beside, behind me, and start brand new. And then the Nightcap was born. So, the Nightcap comes from, from a pandemic. So started doing shows outside. I got this beautiful space, and you've been there many times.
You added the heat lamp. I saw it. Don't think I did. I noticed that.
Yeah, you saw.
I noticed the little details and the effort. I know you put a lot of work, into everything.
Yeah, and those and same thing. I got all these great comics. I've since produced a wonderful festival in Los Angeles. So now I've got kind of people starting to know my name, and all these comics can't go on the road. So they're able to do shows, and I've had some really big names come through, and that's not going to change. Yeah, man, it's been a wild ride for sure.
Oh, I gather for sure. And you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but what is maybe like, let's put the pandemic aside and let's say comedy gets back to somewhat normal. What is sort of the long-term or maybe more shorter-term goals for you as far as comedy? Is it to tour nationwide? Do you want to make albums? Do you want all of that? I know you said you're writing. You want to do some your own content and scripted things, but what does the future look like, even in an ideal
Oh yeah,
way for
yeah.
you?
So simultaneously, what's going to happen is um, I will continue to do shows here at the Nightcap along while I'm doing that. It's funny. In March of 2020, I was gonna record an album from the space. So that got put on hiatus because of the pandemic. So that's still on the books. I want to do a live comedy album from my venue, and so that's going to happen. Doing shows, comedy, comedy album, and then I'm in talks right now with a couple of different streaming platforms to sell a TV concept that I came up with. So
Wow, that's exciting.
yeah, so that's kind of the new thing, and I've always had a passion for cooking, so it's a cooking / lifestyle show. So it's going to be it's really original, and I've got a few different producers and platforms interested in it. So that's kind
And
of
I'm assuming you would be on camera for this, and that you'd
yeah.
be
So how that stuff works is a lot of times is I don't really care if they want me to host it.
right.
They want to get somebody bigger, and as long as I get the creative by and I produce it, that's what I want.
Right, I got you.
Then I
That
can
makes
do whatever
sense.
I want, right? So, and that's it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really excited about it. And so that's kind of the newest
Great.
thing that's happening right now. And then, yeah, man, just continuing to do comedy and perfect my craft and perform. I love performing, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm in a really cool place to do it. I mean, LA is in shambles right now, but I think the comedy community will bounce back. Look, I'm one of only like 5 shows happening right now in all of Los Angeles, which is crazy.
Yep.
So I feel like I will be hitting the ground running when things start to open up. I'll be ready.
Yeah, that's great. Just be prepared. Be prepared for sure. You know what I was thinking about earlier is sort of some of the differences between improv and stand up.
Yeah.
I think your buddy was saying stand up is easier, but I think stand up can be harder because depending on what kind of comic you are, like does it not require you to be more vulnerable and more honest and more even real? I mean, I guess when you're doing improv, you could expose certain sensitive or vulnerable things about yourself or your personality or be silly, but something about stand up I feel like is inherently more personal, more vulnerable. You're exposing yourself, you're more kind of putting yourself out there. Do you
Yeah,
agree with
you're 100% right. It is, stand up is not only harder, it's more personal. It's you learn a lot about yourself through the craft, which is not something that happens in all forms, especially improv. But you have guys like Larry the Cable Guy who hide behind a character, right? So in that sense, what's harder is writing the jokes. He's got to write these jokes in a character. So that's hard because that's not who he is. His name is not Larry. So he's got to come up with this character. So that there's stand-up comedy is way harder than improv. Also, improv, most of the time, you're doing it with other people. Stand-up comedy is a solo sport. It's tennis, and improv is basketball. So, you're the writer, you're the director, you're the editor. You are responsible for everything that's being said. And improv's not that way. You're responsible for, it's like jazz. It's like jazz music. Jazz music's hard, but it's also, the improv's more like jazz and stand-up is more like, I don't know, classical piano, I guess. It's like it's just you on the stage, and these stanzas and these pieces are very difficult, and that's the hard part. It's like coming up with brand new stuff in your own voice and making it funny enough for people to think that they would like to see you again.
The laughing is what it makes it all worth it.
Yes.
The laughter.
The laughing.
Which fits under, I feel like something you said earlier, which is a good reminder for me to hear, is appreciating the small victories. And you said it's what keeps you going. And I think I'm realizing that about myself. Yeah. It really is those small victories. And you need to have them every couple of weeks, every month at least, more often,
And even when you feel
sometimes.
like you don't think you have a small victory, there's small victories. We're so hard on ourselves. Do you ever play video games, Adam?
Yeah, more as a kid, but yeah, for sure.
You ever play the game Cruising USA or any race game?
Sure. Yeah, yeah, some of them.
You know how you get a time, right? The time's winding down 54, 53, 52. You got to get to a time stamp, and then the time goes back and you get more time, right? That's a
Sure.
small victory. So on your racing, you got to get to a small victory to keep you going to the next one. So, uh, we are super critical of ourselves, especially in a town where everyone's looking at each other's paper, and comparison is the thief of joy. So when you sit and look at your own life and go, man, I did this, and oh, I'm doing that, that's when you get those victories. You know what I mean? That's the
Yeah.
victories that keep you going.
It's the your only competition in many regards is really yourself, in a sense, is it not? And it's like the whole with Tom Brady. I'm being topical. I remember him talking about, the competition really is with him yesterday. To do better than, all you got to do is better than yesterday, or better, or even equal, or maybe some people said, maybe even not as good some days, but then maybe 2 steps forward the next day. But basically,
100%.
just try to keep that consistency going in whatever you're pursuing in your life.
Yeah, I mean, look, Tom Brady. Like, I'm not much of a sports guy, but I do know about football on the surface, I guess. But I mean, if there's not a winner, if that guy doesn't embody that word to do what he did in a place like uh, New England, and then to leave New England, and everybody thinks he's washed up. He goes to play for Tampa Bay and takes him to a fucking Super Bowl again. Like, that's a winner.
He's
And
doing something right.
yeah, yeah. So what he's saying is, to be better than he was the day before, it's like you have your future self, you have your present self, and you have your past self. And your present self is always trying to be better than your past self, and your present self and your future self is always trying to be better than your present self. And so, like, it's always a competition with yourself. Like you said, am I better than I was yesterday? Tomorrow, will I be better than I was today? And that never stops. But you also have to take a lot of time to. I'm learning for myself this.
Balance, some kind of balance.
Yeah, you gotta also. That's why I say small victories, because I'm real hard on myself. So my job for myself is to be nice to myself. That's another part of it. Like, yeah, you can be hard on yourself, but you also got to be nice to yourself. Like Tom Brady as a kid, doesn't become Tom Brady unless he loses and somebody goes, yeah, that sucks. That feeling sucks, right? You don't want that feeling. That's what's important, is you got to go, okay, yeah, I don't like that feeling. Well, how do you change it? Rather than, you suck, you're never going to be nothing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're always going to be nothing. You're never going to be something. Like, that's
I
hard.
feel like so many of these topics have come up like so many times with different comedians in various forms. Like, people talking about the positive thinking and I forget what it is. Like, the way you change the language in your own mind to sort of reflect that changes your actions, and sort of the law of attraction stuff and all of that. Yeah, no, you're right. It's not helpful to be negative about yourself, really.
You're right. Not at all.
You can be honest with yourself without you have to be honest with yourself about the positive things too, I guess.
100%. And like, I think the pandemic has taught me a lot about that, and I'm grateful. And a lot of people are going through the pandemic, and like, we've lost comics to suicide, and we've lost people to the coronavirus, but at the same time, a lot of good is coming out of the pandemic, and a lot of good will come out of the pandemic. So I got to focus on that, and I got to.
Yeah, for sure. You see, with I guess tragedy or hardship, you do see the positive in many areas come out of in the human spirit for sure, and that's not often highlighted by the news or social media or our culture. But if you surround yourself with good people and you're lucky and you're healthy, you know, those are good things. And I feel I have those things in my life. I'm very lucky, for, you know, for those things for sure. I feel pretty fortunate for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, you have to. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, it's with comedy and comics being very critical of themselves, and you know, a lot of times the sadness that pours through them. It's nice to remind yourself that you are as important as everyone else, but you also have a light that is shining enough that makes the people who are going through something able to go through it with an escape from their life. Or sounds rambly, but
no, that's good. That's like your affirmation.
Yeah, I mean,
it sounds like an affirmation.
Yeah, man. Look, you know, I've talked to a lot of my friends, and you know, and some of them are doing that well. I got a buddy who hasn't left his house since March. Like, I mean, obviously, he goes on walks every day, but you know, I care a lot about him. I'm worried about him because he's scared. So we want to try and keep that in mind when we're feeling like, man, is this pandemic ever going to stop? Or, you know, we got to remind ourselves that, like, there are people out there that are dealing with some shit. But as people who entertain, that's what we are. That's what we're going to do to help them. We're going to help them move time and make it feel like it's not slowing down, right?
It's laughter is an antidote. Like, people say it's the best medicine. It depends on what your issue is. If you have a broken leg, maybe not. But especially for, you know, our general well-being and mental health, it's not a cure-all, but it's important, I think. And it's definitely, like, you know, it's important to have a good attitude if you're going through any sort of medical thing or whatever the case may be. It helps laughing. I've seen people I'm close to, like, dealing with all kinds of stuff, and laughter for people is definitely an escape, and it helps the body. Helps the body. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, and I'm speaking generally, but yeah, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, and I definitely appreciate it.
I mean, this has been a lot of fun, man. And I mean,
for sure. No, I'm glad to hear.
I'm so proud of you, man. Because I remember.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot.
I remember when you started this, so it's cool that you're still doing it, and that's a testament to people who are listening. The person who pays attention to your podcast who's scared to start one, or someone who likes comedy but's afraid to start doing it. It's like, just do it, just start it.
That is the advice that I've heard, you know, even before I got started, and, like, you know, throughout this one, because I listen to other podcasts, and they, you know, I've covered this topic. Should I do a podcast? How do I get started? And everyone says what you just said. You just kind of got to go do it. Just go do it. You started your show, and that's commendable too. I admire people who take, you know, initiative and try to make something out of nothing.
Yeah, a lot of people are afraid of failure, but, like, nothing, like, especially in the comedy world, like, you don't learn from killing. You don't learn from crushing. You don't learn from making everybody in the room die laughing. You learn from that one joke that fell flat. You go, God damn, what do I got to do to change it?
Yeah, it takes a special person, though, to have their failures public.
Yeah. But
that is a difference.
But you learn very quickly, you know, that like you said earlier, man, the competition is with yourself.
Yeah, and you get life skills out of that, like being able to think quick on your feet and deal with social situations and professional situations and public speaking. I'm sure, just like, you're on stage, you know, the acting, the theater, the comedy, all of it has just, like, benefited you in many ways beyond.
Yeah, man, I'm grateful, man. I'm grateful. I've met a lot of fucking awesome people in the comedy community, and I'm sure I've met lifelong friends. I've met, you know, people who give me endless support like you. And, I'm grateful that I met you, Adam.
Oh, thank you. You guys, and vice versa, likewise, for sure, man.
Thank you.
Sweet. Well, why don't you tell people where they can find you, follow you, anything else you're working on, you want to promote, anything we haven't covered. I'll give you the floor to do whatever you do.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. AaronMliner.com. And then my club, nightcap.la, nitecap.la. We do shows starting in February. We're going to do shows every single weekend. I've got my February 6th and February 13th lineups are crazy. I can't even believe the comics I've got. And like I can tell you offline, but it's pretty crazy. So
yeah, I might have to roll through to one or both of those. Actually, my birthday. My birthday is actually February 13th.
Oh, you should come to it then for sure.
I might have to. I mean, it's. I don't think I have that many other options going on.
Well, and I want everyone to know when they're listening to this. I want everyone to know, and you can be a testament to this. I am doing things very safely. I temperature check.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
We're socially distancing. We're doing masks, so it's needed, and we're trying to keep everybody safe. And all the comics are having a great time, and the crowds are asking me always when the next one is. So, follow us on Instagram, follow me on Instagram, and keep me posted. Let me know what's going on with you too, Adam.
Oh, for sure. Sounds good. I appreciate the time, and we'll talk soon, and I'm sure I'll see you at a show soon as well.
Thanks so much, Adam. Appreciate you, man.
Oh, you got it. You too. Later. So there you have it. My conversation with Aaron Mliner. I again thank him. That was fun, and that conversation really does mean a lot to me. Episode 100 is done. But anyway, for everything about this show, of course, head to peoplewelovepodcast.com. And the Instagram handle is at peoplewelovepodcast. I'm at Adam Choid on Instagram and Twitter. And I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you guys listening. Thanks as always, and let's talk soon. Peace.